So the 8 limbs of yoga refers to different aspects of our being. Yamas, we call it Yama Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. These are the 8. Now, what is this related to? The first limb, Yama, is related to how you operate in the world, how you operate with others. That is called Yamas, Vyavaharam. To be truthful, not to accumulate goods, like this. Vyavahara with reference to others is called Yamas. Niyamas has to do with nobody is forcing you, but how you do it yourself. Your own personal habits, like cleanliness, brahmacharya, these are considered part of the niyamas. That means those are more to do with yourself rather than your interaction with others. Then asana. Asana has to do with your body. What is the perfect asana? Perfect asana is not doing all kinds of acrobatics. Asana means a steady, comfortable posture is called asana. To attain a steady, comfortable posture is the process of asanas. Pranayama is finer than that. Is about your life energy, prana shakti. Your body is only as vital as your prana. The body may have everything. If it doesn't have prana, it is useless. Then pratyahara. Pratyahara has to do with the senses. Pratyahara actually means, pranayama means to expand the prana. Pratyahara means to feed the other food. Pratyahara, different ahara. Pratyahara. Normally, for the eyes, the palms, they are the food. For the ears, sound is the food. For the skin, touch is the food. For the nose, the smell is the food. Like that, 5 senses have got 5 different aharas. For the tongue, taste is the food. Then the senses, instead of going outwards, when they go inwards, and they begin to have a different ahara, separate ahara. They begin to feed on something that is different from the external flow. That is called pratyahara. Drawing the senses inwards instead of letting the senses go outwards. So in meditation, we don't focus on the sound. The sound disappears by itself. That is pratyahara. You intentionally do not pay attention to the sound that is present. Similarly with the smell, similarly with the touch. You detach yourself, you detach the senses from their objects and go inwards. This is called pratyahara. Dharana has to do with the mind. Dharana is to do with the mind. What you hold in your mind. If you are holding crazy pictures in your mind, then the body will get affected by what you hold in your mind. If you hold a nice, wonderful picture, then your whole body will relax. If you are thinking, or if your mind is occupied with something that is pleasant, then the metabolic changes takes place. Mind is like a TV screen. You can project anything onto the mind. The projection on the mind comes from 2 places. Either the external senses will give you the stimulus, or your past memory will give you the stimulus. Either you can remember from your past experiences, or you get the stimulation from what is present to your senses. In the computer language, when you can draw it from the memory or it is coming from the peripherals, the input. And the mind, whatever it holds, that begins to happen in the body. If the mind feels that you are now going to go and take that, the hand will move. The mind's command can be so powerful that whatever the mind says, the body will begin to listen to it and make it into a reality. This is what is used in hypnotism. The reality is something, but the mind is creating a different reality and it is holding it, and the body begins to react as if that is true. Mind has a great power over the body. So if you are able to keep that focus in the mind, the whole body character will change. A man can turn into a woman by simple, very, very strong holding in the mind. It is a shift in the ego state. When this happens, they have found that the body character change. Depending on the personality that is present in that body changes. Shift in being has got a very, very big effect on the physiology. So a lot of times when we do AMC and all, when there is a very powerful thing that you are perfectly alright, nothing is going to happen. People who have never walked 1 mile, they will walk 10 miles. When the shift happens in the being, anything is possible. When they see themselves as a young person, they can do fantastic things. When they see themselves as an old person, they cannot do anything. How you see yourself, the self-image has got a very great effect on the physiology. Now, what self-image you create, mind holds the self-image, but what is it that creates the self-image? Is the intellect. Mind holds it. It's like a TV screen, okay? But what actually creates the self-image and holds it is the intellect, buddhi. Manas, buddhi, ahankara. We are going to distinguish these 3 states. What is mind, what is intellect, and what is ego? So dharana has to do with what you hold in your mind. If you hold negative things, then negative things will begin to happen in the body. If you hold positive things will begin to happen in the body. But what you hold in the mind shifts very rapidly with knowledge. Just to give you a small example, you hear a door cling, cling, cling. You are sitting and it's very dark. One person will say, "Bhoot." A ghost has come. The ghost is making the sound. A person who knows that there is wind and simply it is moving because of the wind, he doesn't get scared. See, what you experience depends on the knowledge you have. If you have right knowledge, you will have no fear. If you don't have the right knowledge, then you will have fear. So that which is truth and that which is not truth. Nobody is afraid when they don't know what is going to happen. When they really don't know, and they don't bother about it. Okay? But people are afraid only when they know something can happen. It is the imagination of something that can happen that leads to fear. So, Krishnamurti says, people always say, fear is of the unknown. Fear is never of the unknown. Fear is only of the known. So, knowledge, right discrimination is very important. Dhyana has to do with discrimination, has to do with the intellect. What you understand. Now, what is samadhi? Dharana has to do with the mind, jnana has to do with the intellect. Now, what is samadhi to do with that? Samadhi to do with the being, with the ego state, with the sense of identification. Everything is ruled by this identity. What do you consider yourself to be? Your discrimination depends on what you consider yourself to be. Why you discriminate the way you discriminate? Why you hold certain things as good or bad, right or wrong? All depends on your sense of identity. This we go into in the first reading. What is the function of the intellect? Is simply to protect whatever is your identity. So, what is this Jivatma? Jivatma is this identified conditioned self. Okay? Once you identify, then what you do is you build up a paraphernalia around it to protect it. And then you build some more paraphernalia around it to protect it. Every action leads to more protection. Okay? More protection leads to more insecurity. And more insecurity leads to more protection. And this cycle of building a cocoon around you, this is called karma bandhana. First of all, because of your identity you are made to do, because you do, you get bound. Once you start expressing your protection mechanism, people will discriminate against you. The more they discriminate against you, the more you say, see, people don't care, so I want to protect myself. The more you protect yourself, the more people will say, this fellow doesn't care for anybody, he cares for himself. So, this cycle goes on, continues, and then you build a big cocoon around yourself. And then you are wondering why I am not happy, why I am not free. Where is the secret of samadhi is to puncture the state of insecurity, to be secure. Once you are able to let go, then more security will come, sense of security. And then more you are able to let go, the more security will come. The more you let go, the more security will come. Correct? Before, the more you do, the more insecurity. The more you do, the more insecurity. That is why it is called karma bandhana. Karma bandhana. Bandhana, karma. Karma bandhana. So you are going through the same cycle of karma bandhana. Bandhana leads to karma. Karma leads to bandhana. Bandhana leads to karma. And what is it? You develop into a cocoon who has got a very strong identification. That we call as a jivat. Even if you understand that this is all foolish, you still cannot get out. Why? Because of prarabdha karma. Because of your past cocoon that you have built, even if you decide to come out, you can come out a little bit, but you will find that there is a lot of barriers that you have built from before, which takes a while to get out. You are not like the man who has really let go. You have let go and still you have your understanding attachments there. You have got your previous attachments which you cannot kick off. See, that is why a lot of you, even if you want to live like a child, you find it totally impractical right now because of your past prarabdha. You can't live. It requires courage. More courage you have, the more breakthrough you have. But you have only that much courage, only that much breakthrough. But that is better than cocooning. Now the uncocooning is happening. And every experience of uncocooning is an experience of ecstasy. Because you are getting free. You are feeling freer and freer. It is not freedom itself that is important, but getting freer, that is the experience that feels you as if it is freedom. The freeing is experienced as freedom. And binding is experienced as bondage. You are wearing 25 clothes, one on top of another. You release one cloth. Say, fantastic. You remove one more. Remove one more. Like that. You feel fantastic. Every time you remove, fantastic. See, everybody has pain. Who doesn't have pain? Right now you are having pain. Only when a bigger pain goes away, you say, correct? It is only degrees of pain. There is nothing like painlessness. We call it the Russian joke, It's a Russian joke. I call it a Russian joke. Just to give it, Russia, a very difficult economy. Everybody was only showing off that we got arms and all that. But internally, they were having a lot of problems. Because everybody was telling everybody must look after everybody, but nobody was looking after nobody. So there were a lot of internal conflicts there. And when this man used to go to work, everybody used to preach him as to how he should work for the whole country. And nobody was working, but he feels he must work. A lot of pressure at work. When he goes home, he has got many children and all of them are screaming and the wife is shouting. And the fellow thought one day, what am I leading my life? When I go to work, I get screamed at by my bosses. When I come home, I get screamed at by my wife. There is a relief in this world. So he decides one day, I'm going to do something about this. He goes and buys a shoe which is one size less than his size. He walks around. The whole day he walks around. And when he comes home, the wife starts shouting, as usual. So the man, at that moment, he removes the shoes. When he removes the shoes, he experiences such great joyousness that he can take anything now. Life is always full of these wonderful changes. It is a process of freeing, letting go. Now what we are teaching is the process of letting go. Now what is it that we must teach people? If we tell them that you must do good things, you must be very straight with others, you must be truthful, you must be honest, you must be this, that and everything. And after you have succeeded in being perfectly honest, perfectly truthful, perfectly brahmacharya, perfect non-stealing, not even thinking about somebody's wealth. When you have attained that, then we will go to niyamas, which are your personal habits, and now we will refine them. After you have become perfectly pure, clean, straight, then we will think about you sitting in a particular asana which is comfortable. Until then, don't sit. First you get yourself perfectly okay, and then decide to sit comfortably. You understand? Is this the way yoga works? They think from yama niyama they are going to go to samadhi. Is it going to happen? That is why all of yoga is dead, because they have gone in the reverse direction. When a person begins to let go and gains the strength, gains the inner happiness, now will he do better things with others than what he was doing before? Automatically. In fact, the very first chapter of the Patanjali Yoga Sutra is 4 chapters. And the first chapter is called Samadhipada. Second chapter is called Vibhuti Pada. Third one, fourth one is called Kaivalya Pada. Third one is called something. So each one is referring to a particular shifts in being. Most of us, before coming to SSY, all that we know of is our prarabdha karma, that's all. Continue to be the same personality, living the same state, and we don't know how to get out of this state. We say life will go on like this. We are born like this, we have to get on with it. After you go through SSY, and especially one retreat, you begin to see a sudden shift in your consciousness possible. That you too can be free, that you too can be childlike, that you too can experience ecstasy like a child, like a person. Free, that most people never become child again. They always grow older and older and older and older and die. Okay? The death is more because of their consciousness, which is now wrapped up. They don't have any freedom. They are bound by tradition. That is why there is such a huge gap between the one generation and the next generation. This generation has got a lot of hang-ups about what should be done, what should not be done. While the new generation challenges why it should be done. And these people are unable to explain. They say, my father did it, my grandfather did it, you better do it like this, that's all. No other explanation than this is tradition. So all such old traditions are useless traditions. We need not do things just because it is tradition. It simply means stuck-upness, not freedom. But that doesn't mean that tradition is useless. Tradition that has come out of bondage is useless. Tradition that has come to free oneself is useful. That which has come from wisdom, that which has come by practice. By repetitive practice, certain things become habituated and that becomes tradition. All things that have come out of habituation are all deterrents to the growth of a civilization. Why one should pay dowry? Because every son gets a dowry, you also get a dowry because you will have to marry off your daughter. At that time you have to give dowry, you better take it now, you see. This has become only by practice. It has no real tradition behind it. So tradition must be questioned. You must not accept any tradition just like that. Neither should we reject a tradition just because we cannot justify it right now also. Okay? Because a lot of things which we do not understand must be done until we understand. Why one should go on repeating to stop 2, 3 or 6? If the child goes on asking why I should, you cannot explain to him, Baba, it is going to be very useful. You practice right now, you will get it. Afterwards, anybody asks, you will get it immediately. Right now, just practice. If that fellow thinks, at that time I will see why you worry right now, then he will never get it at that time. He has to get it right now, you see. So a lot of things, we cannot reject tradition simply because it is a tradition. There are a lot of foolish people who simply say, just because it is old tradition, I don't believe it. And tradition goes on changing. What is useful today and what is practical today may not be practical tomorrow, okay? And that when it becomes habituated and it starts leading the whole society in a very perverted direction, because of habit it is moving, not because it is useful. All such traditions have to be questioned. So now we have got a little understanding of the 8 wings of yoga and the model of how it works. Whenever you see something, whenever you see some perception from outside, it goes into the mind there. And then the intellect will draw upon the tapes which are corresponding to this. It will draw it from their past experience and compare notes as to what this is and what to do in this situation to protect myself. That it will tell the mind that this is what must be done. Now you order the body to do it. You can do it. Output devices are these organs. The input devices are the senses. So, you have understood what is ahankara. Ahankara is also a state that you have assumed. Aham akara is ahankara. And when it gets solidified, and solidified, you will carry that everywhere. So even if you are, what is Jivan Mukti? Is really being in the state of being is Jivan Mukti. If you are able to be in a state where you are continuously freeing yourself, you are in Jivan Mukti. So, when people ask you, are you enlightened? What will you say? Say, you tell them, yeah, I'm enlightened and I'm not enlightened. Before, I did not know anything about enlightenment. Now, I know when I am fallen, I know when I have gotten up. And I know how to get up after having fallen. And I know when I cannot get up when I have fallen also. Before, I did not know when I was fallen, when I have gotten up. Before, it was always falling only. To this degree, I am enlightened there. But it doesn't mean that I am enlightened there, because I am not always in the state of freeing. Once you get that mastery of being able to be always in this freeing process, then you have attained something. It is only a matter of awareness and courage. Awareness, check. Courage, to put it to action, to let go. So when people say, have you realized yourself? Yes, I have realized and I have not realized what that. I have realized that what it is to be in the ecstasy of my own self. I also know when I am not in it. The difference is, once any person tastes this, he cannot go back. Any person who does exercise, his life is altered for good forever. Even though the fellow may not be practicing, don't worry. Once he is here, he is packed up. At least he knows there's a way out.